Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Courtney Lockey. We start with new information about potential next steps for a proposed convention center and Fargo Dome expansion after voters said no to the proposal in December. The second time around, it appears the projects will be proposed separately. Visit Fargo-Moorhead wants the City Commission to put a resolution on the November 5th ballot. It calls for a vote to add an additional 3% lodging tax to the City of Fargo's existing 3% over 25 years. The proposed conference space would be somewhere in Fargo, not necessarily connected to the Fargo Dome. It does not call for a particular project and instead says if passed by voters, city commissioners would start the process of seeking a public-private partnership. The Fargo Dome Authority is also asking city commissioners to put a separate question on the November ballot for approval of a quarter-cent sales tax for renovations and expansion of the Fargo Dome. We'll have much more on this story tonight at 10 and, of course, coverage of that city commission meeting on Monday.